Okay, thank you.
Okay, so everybody ready? All right, I'm gonna call to order the regularly scheduled, sorry. I don't think we're on film yet. No, we're good? Okay, all right. I'm gonna call to order the, regularly scheduled September meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for Thursday, September 2nd. It is 1:15. Can someone make a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Michael makes that motion. Would someone second?
Second.
Mark Moore seconds. All those in favor of approval of the agenda, please say aye.
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 Okay. Approval of the minutes for August 11th, 2022. I read them, didn't see anything that needed correction. Did anyone else have any comments or corrections? No. Okay. Would someone make a motion to approve the minutes of August 11th, 2022?
I'll make the motion.
All right, Elisa makes that motion. Michael seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Moving on to old business, 3721 Christina and Nicholas Amandolare, 8 Bank Street. They have requested to continue to the October 13th, 2022 meeting. Would someone make the motion for that
I'll make
continuance?
that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Michael makes the motion, Elisa seconds. All those in favor to allow the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Can I do all the continuances now? Okay. So 922 Harris on Wee Weeder LLC for 50 Wee Weeder Avenue has also asked to continue to October 13th, 2022. Would someone make a motion to allow that continuance?
So moved.
All right, so Lisa makes a motion. I need a second.
Second.
And Michael makes the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And then in new business, can I go to new business? Okay, 10/20/22, Moran, which is, I think it's 4 Washington, also asked to continue to October 13th, 2022. Would someone make a motion to allow that?
Motion.
So Michael's made the motion. Would someone second?
Second.
Elisa seconds. All those in favor to allow the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, that motion carries. Okay, so, so we are going to do, we're gonna do the agenda a little bit backwards, so we're gonna, which one, 51 Tennessee is first?
Yeah, 11:22.
Okay, so we're gonna do the new business first, so 11/22, Benjamin Rubenstein and Adrian Bistany, 51 Tennessee, Linda Williams presenting. What page is that now in the packet?
It starts on
64.
64?
64.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Linda Williams, you have the floor.
Representing the applicant, Madam Chair, Linda Williams. This is a fairly straightforward pool. There's no bells and whistles or anything unusual about this. It's actually almost a 34,000 square foot lot in the VR zone, which minimum is 20,000 to have a pool. And the pool has actually been approved by the HDC, and I gave you the aerials and I gave you the approval in your packet. You can see that the pool is actually not that big. It's 18 by 8, but it's also located in between the new dwelling and the existing dwelling, which is being moved further back on the lot. And it's embedded in the breezeway area between the two structures in a deck. So it's not out in the yard by itself. It's actually down into the deck, which you can see from the HDC site plans in there. I have included in here all of the conditions that you normally put in, because they all are just fine. Now, as there's no exterior lighting associated with the pool other than what's already on the houses, you did receive something from an abutter across the street, across M Street. M Street is a private road. It's a proprietor's way. Obviously, if there's any damage to M Street, the applicant will fix it. It's to their benefit to fix it, but they also have access to the property from Washington, and they have access to the property from Tennessee. So it's sort of an interesting, a lot that runs north to south. So it has other access points. So as I say, if they will damage M Street, they will fix it. But ZBA doesn't have a right to impose a bond for that. They'll have to deal with it themselves. As far as chemical runoff with heavy rain, that's associated with any pool on Nantucket, but the ones with auto covers are rather exempt from that problem. When they drain the pool, which a lot of them don't anymore, they run the auto covers across them and the water stays in it. We'll abide by the condition that you normally put on it, that we have to have a professional pool person to come drain the pool, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that you've required with every one of these pool applications. As far as the septic system is concerned, they've already installed a brand-new IA system that will encompass both structures, the new primary and the secondary moved on the lot. And it's already been okayed by the health department as to where these buildings are located, so that septic comment from them has no basis. As far as contaminating wells, this property is on town water, and town water is available to everybody on that street, including the neighbors across the street. And we don't anticipate any more contamination than you would as a regular residence, because the pool is never going to be drained into the septic system, because the septic system has just been upgraded and it's not going to be connected to that pool. As far as night noise and development of Nantucket, this is in an older section of Nantucket, but this still has some larger lots over there that have not been subdivided because of septic and ground cover. And we're not here to discuss the density of structures. I understand it's a little jarring because there's only one structure on that property right now, but the HCC has already approved all of these structures in one meeting, by the way, which was rather unusual. Noise bylaw kicks in at 10 o'clock. I know. At 10:01, I'm making a phone call where I live. So if there's noise and screaming and yelling coming from a pool, they have the right to call the police, but if there's a noise bylaw in place, and they do respond pretty quickly when there's some problem with it. If you have any other questions, I pretty much laid it out in great detail in the addendum. Also, the vegetated screening that's there now is going to be maintained and augmented as required by the HDC. And the whole site where the pool is and the two structures are is actually on a rise, so it actually rises up from M Street. There was a lot of discussion at the at the HDC, about the height of the part of the lot where these structures are located versus the height of M Street. And it's got a rise of a couple of feet, if not 3 feet. And it's more than 30 feet back off of M Street. It's blocked from visibility by the existing structure moving from Washington, and that's a good 60, 70 feet away. And then it's also blocked from Tennessee because of the new structure and the garage in front of the new structure. So we think, as opposed to a lot of the pools we see out there, this is probably the least visible of any of the pools, with or without screening. And the pool equipment's actually going to be in a vault underneath the deck. So it's not going to be exposed, and there's not going to be any noise from it. So a lot of these things were considered by the HDC in advance. And I know there's people don't like pools, particularly in Nantucket, but then changed the bylaw. The VR allowed it for oversized lots and allowed it if you meet other certain criteria, which I also included. And I believe the bylaw citation is also in your packet from Billy. But the only two criteria really is the lot must meet minimum lot size, and the side and rear yard setbacks of 20 feet shall apply, all of which we exceed by a great deal. And then I listed all the conditions in the addendum that you normally put on these things. So if anybody has any more questions, let me know. And Arthur Reed's here if we have to get into any legal wrangling with other comments being made.
Did you have a comment? I heard you say.
I may have misunderstood you when you were talking about,
Speaking to your,
draining part of the pool for the winter. Did you say electric cover or?
automatic car, auto cover. Most of these
You wouldn't
pools,
leave that up for the winter, though?
most of my guys do.
Really?
Yeah, they don't drain them, half people don't drain them anymore, but those who do drain them will pull the cover back. But if the water's still in it, the cover stays on.
I would say that's a really bad idea.
I've almost walked on it.
Because you want a winter cover,
Yeah,
and you want to drop the water level about 16 inches
Yeah.
below the scuppers. and that water's gotta go somewhere.
Sucked out by the guys that come and drain it.
Okay,
Because that's what you guys require. It's,
yeah,
shall engage a professional company to discharge the pool water in a tanker and dispose of it at the wastewater treatment facility. 'Cause that's usually your first condition on all of your decisions. Because what we don't want, particularly in Nantucket, is for any of that to be drained anywhere into the groundwater
right.
or the septic. So, yeah, that's something that it's to his advantage not to do that. And I don't know anybody who's doing that anymore. I know that people do
I
it.
can't imagine leaving an electric cover on all winter, especially if the electricity goes out, because you have to leave a pump on top of it
Right.
24 hours a day.
So, I mean, I'm not up to me what they're doing with it. I just know that if we have to drain it, and it's in the deck, they will have to drain it with a tanker as required if they cannot possibly drain it into that groundwater. And they're very aware of it, which is why they've already tied into town water, and every building there is going to be tied into town water.
I have a question. So is the red clouded area along M Street where the vegetation is that being removed for access?
As I say, they're probably
I'm
coming
not
off of...
understanding the terminology. 15-foot minimum
Hold
to breakout. What does that mean?
Hang on. Which one of the maps are you looking at?
I'm on page 81.
I don't
And
have the
it's-
packet.
It's right next to the septic.
You talking about the one with the little green on it?
Yes.
Alyssa, this one?
Elisa, yes.
Lisa.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how much of the vegetation, is that what that means? And whether it means it or not, is vegetation on M Street being taken out for construction?
Not as far as he's told me. I think they're going to be coming in from Tennessee or Washington because there are accesses there.
Mm-hmm.
And it says existing vegetation buffer to remain, and then the HDC required that if it does have to come out for access to something,
Mm-hmm.
that it goes back in and then they augment it. And I talked to the representative this morning, and they're going to plant the heck out of it.
Okay. But, so are you saying that any of the natural vegetation along M Street will be removed for
We don't,
for
right now,
construction?
he's not anticipating it being removed, but I don't know, in order to move that other structure back, they may have to come in that way.
Mhm.
But right now, my understanding is they're coming in on the two other roads. But if they come in there, they're going to have to put it back. They know that.
Right.
Because the HCC is requiring it.
Just reading the neighbor's letter, their concern is with M Street. And if none of that natural vegetation and root systems were affected, I think, I'm just guessing, they would probably feel more comfortable with the project and maybe,
I know that's what they anticipate, but as I say, if there's something happens and they have to get in there for some reason, that's all going to have to go right back again. Because the
But-
HCC is going to come and do a visual inspection, and if it isn't all back there again, we're not going to get a sign-off from any of it.
right, but they're worried about affecting M Street and the runoff and for the time period that there's no vegetation in that, 100+ foot swath, there will be runoff and that will be affecting M Street is what I'm guessing if any of the natural vegetation is taken out.
Well, the thing with that is that the structures are more than 30 feet, 45 feet away from M Street.
Mhm.
So it's got a long way to go before it ever gets to that little 2-foot rise. And obviously,
Okay.
if something happens there over the winter, we'll be all over it.
Okay. That's all.
It's a tricky project, so there are going to be people on site monitoring this thing.
Who's the builder?
I don't know, Brooke Meerbergen was the one who was involved with that part of it.
Okay.
Probably J.D.
Bessie.
Bessie? Yeah.
Is there a landscape plan for this? Did I miss it here?
Well, that was part of the HDC approval. I think it's all part of it's all together. The deck is it was kind of an interesting
I
application.
think it's all on page 81 because the HTC certificate of appropriateness does say they have to restore, replace anything that comes out, but
But I don't, all I see is the existing vegetation.
Yeah, because the center of the lot is pretty clear, because there's
Well,
a major
it
house in the
says-
middle.
So it says right on the plan, restore vegetated buffer to previous condition with native plantings and where needed to mitigate pool visibility. So we can add, we can have that as a condition on ours, just reinforcing what the HDC said, that it has to be native plantings, but
But
I don't
then on-
understand why they would need to even get onto,
But on the page 81 plan, it says existing vegetated buffer to remain.
right.
And then I don't know what the wording means, 15 minimum to break out.
That's a septic.
Oh, that's the septic, that has nothing to do with it.
And that's already installed, you said,
Yeah.
right? That's all done.
Okay, so this whole M Street vegetated space is established,
Yeah, there's pictures of it in there, I'll give you
and there
pictures
is
from
no
every
plan
angle.
to remove it.
They can get in from Washington, they can get in from
Yeah,
Tennessee, and I would assume that that would be the most optimum way to go, because
I
you gotta
agree.
push the house back,
yeah,
and that's coming in from Tennessee.
yeah.
There shouldn't be really a whole lot of reason to come in from Washington. I expect they'll come in from Tennessee.
Because the only part that's moving is the smaller one, right? Is moving forward?
No, the existing house in the middle of the lot
It's getting moved to the back.
is moving back. Susan, are you on this map, one with the green on it?
I'm on 81.
I don't
So
have the packet.
black structure. is
Right.
the
So you see the
existing
hard line?
structure.
Yeah, but it's nowhere near M Street. Why would you even need to go in?
That's what I'm saying. We may or may not
Yeah.
need to go in. Unless there's an emergency, we won't really be going in from M Street.
Right.
And it's outside the lot lines anyway.
It says existing vegetative buffer to remain, so.
Yep.
Would you be willing to put on the conditions that natural vegetation on M Street is to remain and not to be touched?
No, because if there's an emergency with that septic, we may have to get access to the septic.
Why would there be an emergency with the septic? It's
I don't
already-
know.
But
I'm
couldn't they
just
get in
saying,
from
I'd
Washington
rather
Street?
not get into something that's outside the lot lines, but already under conditions from the HDC. So if you want to base it on the HDC approval plans, that's fine, but I want to hesitate to get into something if we have to for some reason, open it to get in for some reason, and then we'll replant, obviously we have to replant it because the HDC required that. But I don't want to get lost in the weeds here on a private road outside of the lot lines when we do have other ways to get in.
It's just confusing because it says, within the red bubble, it says existing vegetated buffer to remain.
To remain.
And then it also says restore vegetated buffer to previous condition with native plantings and where needed to mitigate pool visibility, so.
Right.
it
Right.
But I'm
doesn't-
saying if we have to take a section out to get on for some reason, well, obviously we have to put it back because the HDC isn't going to sign off unless it's back.
Okay.
So we're already under orders from the HDC, as with every pool from them.
Okay.
Do you know what the plan is for getting equipment back there to dig the pool?
Well, that's kind of tricky because it's actually attached. The pool is in a section of that building that's attached to both buildings. And there's also a breezeway behind it, actually elevated breezeway. So I assume they'll move the first house back, and then they'll start construction on the front house, and I think this is the last piece that's going to get built. But it's in between the two structures. So I'm not sure if they're dropping in or if they're doing the standard pool, but it's built into the deck, so it's actually flush with the thresholds and flush with the deck. So it's going to be, obviously, it's going to be tricky because they can't build that deck until they build the front house and then connect everybody and then put the pool in. But I'm not getting into how they're going to do it. They're just going to have to figure it out
Yeah.
themselves. That's one part of it I don't have to deal with.
How much of the rise of the deck, I'm just curious,
8 inches.
it's, the top of the pool is only going to be 8 inches?
Yeah, it's flush with the
Okay.
top of the deck. And on top of it, between the deck, on the deck and M Street,
Mhm.
there's a bench that was approved. So all you're looking at is a deck. You
Mhm.
can't even see the pool because there's a bench, there's screening, and it's 30-some-odd feet away.
Gotcha.
So if I had to hide a pool, this is probably the only way to hide a pool, completely. You won't even know the pool is there, with or without screening, because it's blocked by so much.
Mhm.
It's kind of an intriguing way to do it.
Um, Does anyone have any comments on the conditions that Linda suggested? My only comment is that the wording's just some of them that we list as one, she's kind of spread out. I would rather just,
I sucked this out of my last pool one,
I would rather.
verbatim. I didn't,
Okay, well, I
Adjust it.
have a, one of our decisions that I kind of use as our,
Boilerplate.
yeah,
yeah.
boilerplate. So
And I
it's
sucked
just-
this out of one of your
Is this not
decisions.
the boilerplate?
I mean, it's the link, it's just a little, the wording's a little different, and
Okay.
like some of the things are, like we have, condition E where we like have a little bit more detail about, you know, stopping chemical treatments 3 weeks before, the drain, if it's drained.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that one in the one I copied from you guys.
Yeah, it's okay, I mean, I'm sure it's in there, it's just, I'm just trying to make sure that.
In A, you mean? That's A.
Oh, okay, so right, it's next, right, so it's
Oh,
an
it's the
A
first one.
instead
A
of,
on
like,
mine is the
Linda-
first
Okay,
one.
sorry, so Linda like made them into like 3 different conditions instead of the one.
So, what about adding a condition regarding M Street, not the landscaping, but restoring the,
So I think we could say something about, in the event applicant needs to access M Street, the same as with the vegetation, they'll restore the street to the condition it was prior to any work being done. I mean, we can say,
Do you want to use the HTC language that's on that bubble?
the
doesn't
HTC language
address
doesn't
M
talk about
Street.
the street, and I don't think the CO.
Because they can't. It's outside the lot lines, and it's a private road.
Yeah, but any type, but
well, it
but,
seems to be a concern of the neighbors.
go ahead,
Yeah.
Leslie.
Yeah, you all can include a condition that they have to, you know, perhaps grade M Street prior to the sign off of the pool. How about that? So then you don't have to get into, did they use it or didn't use, did they use it or did they not use it? They just have to grade it no matter what.
Or can we
Okay.
put down, Arthur Reed just suggested that the condition be that we'll repair any damage done to M Street.
Yeah. It's not clear who owns that street, correct?
Well, the proprietors own it, the people that have rights in M Street own both sides. We actually have rights to
What
the
was your
middle.
suggestion, Leslie?
I would suggest that you put in a condition that they have to regrade M Street prior to the sign off on the pool. So that way, there doesn't have to be an interpretation about whether they damaged it or didn't damage it or used it or didn't use it. They just have to regrade it.
Okay.
That section of M Street, not all of M Street. The abutting section of M Street, right?
The question.
Well, it doesn't matter, whatever, the
Any
whole,
damage.
whatever, just,
Damage
no,
caused by
the whole
aggravated
thing, the whole lot abuts M Street.
Yeah, but there's more M Street than just that section. So I'm just talking about the section that abuts us to the west.
Well, no, because if they, I don't want to get into that, because then if they,
But that's their whole property line abuts
Yeah.
M Street.
But there's more
So
M
it's-
Street than that.
yeah, but if they.
Well, that
well, it doesn't
portion that
matter.
their property abuts.
That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't
Okay.
matter, we can say M Street, we'll just say M Street, I don't want to get into like the 2 inches on the current, the corner or
Right,
whatever.
M Street does come from Nantucket Road.
Yeah, and I don't want to grade that.
So maybe we say.
Just grade any,
Grade the portion of M Street that abuts
along
us.
the western property line.
Yeah.
Madam
That's
Chair,
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was the planning board involved in this project?
Only for the secondary dwelling, that's it.
You're the
And
chair now?
What did they say about M Street?
Nothing.
They didn't say you had to regrade after construction?
No, because we have Tennessee and we have Washington, both of which are paved.
I'm
so
surprised.
Washington is paved, correct?
At that
I'm
section?
sorry, what was that?
Washington is paved, Tennessee is
Wash-
dirt.
Yeah, the planning board
not
didn't
sure.
deal with that at all.
So I,
Tennessee is dirt at that section, Washington is paved, but the planning board found the access adequate. So that was the end of
It
that
all looks
discussion.
like dirt to me.
I think you just have to grade M Street.
How about grade M Street between Matticat Road and Tennessee Avenue?
Great.
Because they have to come
Avenue
in,
in Tennessee.
oh, sorry, Washington.
Washington, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
What are you doing?
So just the portion that the lot you're representing abuts is the portion that they'll need to grade,
Right. and
Yes.
that's-
not to Nantucket Road.
We're fine
just
with that,
from
as
here
long
to
as it's
here.
not everybody else using the road and we're not.
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, so. What is does it say on 81? Restore
Just for future reference, it would be helpful to know if whatever the conditions proposed here are the same as what we've approved in the previous.
Yeah, Jim, this I took right out of one of your decisions. I didn't make these up.
Yeah,
I just
okay.
copied and
Just note
pasted.
if it is or how it
Yeah.
differs if it does.
I said there's no point in my
Would
trying to
save
dream them
time.
up,
Yeah.
because you guys already have them and they're good.
Okay. Does anyone have any, oh, sorry, you wanted to speak on this one. Go ahead, please. Just identify yourself for the,
Thank you,
film.
Madam Chair and members of the ZBA and staff. I'm Bruce Mandel. I live in Nantucket. I'm a former member of the Nantucket Advisory Board, which you may know has been disbanded along with several others. The Nantucket Advisory Board reviewed this application in June, and we sent comments to the ZBA, but for some reason, the comments didn't all get fully transmitted to the HDC when they reviewed and approved the plan. And when we brought that to their attention, you know, hey, let's reconsider, you know, we made other comments. They suggested that we visit with the ZBA when the special permit was reviewed. So that's basically why I'm here. The Nantucket Advisory Board is disbanded, but Nantucket has organized a group of individuals to step into the void created by the disbanding. That group has received unanimous approval from the Nantucket Conservation Association, which represents about 450 member properties in Nantucket. They unanimously approved that the review comments and concerns that this group comes up with can be presented on their behalf. So that's kind of why I'm here. In addition to the 9 conditions that you've been discussing, that you've used on other properties in the past, for example, in the packet, I think it shows the staff reference 265 Nantucket Road LLC as being applicable to the special permit request. So in our discussions, we're considering making the following comment, or we are making the following comment. In addition to those 9 conditions, which read generally contained in other ZBA conditions that grant special permits in relief in Nantucket's VR zoning district, we're going to request now that the ZBA consider the following items. First of all, in the conditions, and there are 9 of them in this document, in several places in item F, for example, item G, item H, we have the language of substantially or substantially conforming to. We felt that was kind of vague. And the folks that reviewed these, by the way, are construction professionals, architects, engineers, some of them retired, some of them still pretty active. And because of this word, reasonable, substantial conformity, the suggestion was made that that should be changed to reasonably, in reasonable compliance with. And that suggestion is based on their experiences, because substantially is open to anybody's interpretation. But if you're reasonably compliant with the plans and specs, that's something you can grab onto. So that's one suggestion. We've mentioned here that the HDC has reviewed this, and they have their pretty standard comments about pools. We're going to request that the ZBA reinforce the HDC's customary comment that the pool be permanently not visible from any public way. But we want to make a comment that if any existing vegetation is removed, that it be replaced and concealed by indigenous mature foliage and vegetation. We have instances in Nantucket where plants are removed, destroyed, and they're replaced by these little miniature plants that have been growing for one season. And the plants that were destroyed or removed were tall, mature plants that concealed the view. So that's one tiny tweak. We had discussed lighting at the Nantucket Advisory Board, and we were kindly reprimanded that that wasn't in the purview of what we're supposed to be looking at. And we're pleased to hear today that the lighting, there's not going to be any lighting around the pool. Our concern is that any lighting fixtures that might be associated with the pool nearby, at the decks, shining down from the house to the pool, we would request that the photometrics of those lights be provided and show that the light will not trespass off the property, and that there will be no lights shining out across the property that would be in violation, obviously, of the lighting regulations. But, you know, let's just make it a condition that they're not going to be like that, so we don't have to go through an enforcement procedure. One of the problems we're having in Nantucket with pools is that the pools have underwater lighting. It's nice, it's fun, but what we're seeing is that lighting is being left on all night. Even though the exterior light's supposed to be off at 10:30, it's on all night. So our request is that there be no underwater lighting.
It's a safety issue.
It's code compliant.
That one, I think we can't.
I'm not sure it's a code requirement.
It is code compliant.
But if it is, you know, we take it as such. It's just a recommendation. There was some discussion here of the automatic covers. I believe it's state regulations that say you don't need a fence if you have an automatic cover. And we've seen automatic covers in Nantucket, and they just don't get used. We've seen critters get stuck in it. We've seen a kid fall into a pool at night. And it's just a cautionary thing that we just are uncomfortable with them because they're just not used properly. And the good suggestion made here about regrading M Street. From my past experience in project development over 50 years, I'd like to make a suggestion that the wording be changed just slightly to regrade, if necessary, based on a pre-construction existing condition photo report, that M Street, that's abutting the property, be regraded in accordance with DPW standards, not just running a blade across it. So the pre-existing photo study is beneficial to the person building, because at the end of the project, if somebody says, oh, you damaged M Street, there's photo evidence to show, look, this is what it was like when we started, this is what it's like when we ended, there's no damage. I don't have to regrade. But just to say they're going to regrade, I think is not necessarily uncontroversial. I think it's subject to discussion, so to speak, of, oh, we didn't damage it, somebody else did, why should I be responsible? So it's just a cautionary suggestion on the wording. So I thank you for the opportunity to present the views of the unofficial Nantucket review people, but the HDC is accepting our presence and our comments, so I would hope you would consider them favorably too. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, can I just quickly respond in bullet form? First off, the word that's used at the HDC is not public way. It is publicly traveled way, which includes dirt roads, potentially opening of paper roads and town roads.
I stand
70% of the roads here are private ways or proprietors' ways. It's kind of crazy. So I'll move that beyond that. Mature vegetation, that word mature is very subjective. Clearly, if we don't put vegetation back, should we have to replant it along M Street in particular, not the other two streets? They're already open for view. Obviously, the HDC will not sign off on the pool, and you can't see the pool anyway because it's behind that, it's in the deck and it's behind the bench. So the HDC is going to require that that vegetation be pretty much as you see it right now. They're the ones that do the site visits, and they're the ones that have to sign off on it. We cannot transpose authority from your board to another entity. You have to do it within your own decision. The DPW looking at M Street is not going to happen. M Street is not a town road, and the DPW will not get involved with something that is not a town road.
I don't think that was, I think he was saying two DPW standards.
Well, there are no DPW standards. It's Department of Transportation. I haven't been on the Planning Commission. There's a whole other thing going on. The DPW doesn't have standards for dirt
I
roads.
took that to mean like the equipment used, not that not to require the DPW to do it or DPW equipment.
Well, they won't even go look at it.
They don't have to go look at it.
We're just going to make it nice. If we have to mess it up, we'll fix it, obviously. We have to, because that's part of your decision already. Leslie already has that. Yeah, 265 Nantucket Road is far more visible than ours is ever going to be. But I
Madam
think
Chair.
we've dealt with almost everything else here. As far as the lights, we're not putting any lights related to the pool except for in the pool, but there's obviously going to be a back door light and a front door light.
And
because
those,
they're
but
two
those are
separate structures.
existing or not existing?
Well, they are on the existing
They're
house,
required
but we're
by
going to
code.
put
No,
lights.
no, I know, but
Well,
I'm
we're going to
just,
have a door light.
I know, Linda, but what I'm at, you said there was, you were not adding any lights, so now I'm just wondering, are
For
you?
related to the pool. The deck is huge.
Mm-hmm.
There's a breezeway. There's going to be a front door light on the existing structure.
But that
as it
should be
moves
fine,
back.
because it says all,
And they have to be downlit. We
all
know that.
lighting. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
they're already going to be downlit. They're already going to be subdued. Obviously, it's dark skies, and we have a dark skies, and Mr. Dark Sky is sitting right here. So if anything scatters beyond the lot lines, we make a complaint, and he comes out and says, you got to downlit it, or you got to reduce the lumens as well, because there's a
Should
lumen
we
maximum.
request, should we request to show where lighting is going to be put on plan? Just so
So we
there's-
usually do request a lighting plan.
Mhm.
The only reason I didn't bring it up earlier is because Linda had said there was no,
There's no pool related to the
pool
pool.
But
lighting.
it's a new
other than the-
structure. It's a new house, right?
Well, they don't require it at the HDC, so there's no lights
I know,
on
but
the
we-
plans for
but-
the HDC part of it.
okay, right,
But
but
lighting-
every time you come here for a pool, we ask you for a lighting plan.
If it was out in the yard, yeah, there would be lights somewhere out related to the pool, freestanding somewhere in the yard. That is not this situation. This pool.
It's not
this-
only the pool, it's not
It's
only.
in the deck.
I
So
know,
there's
but
lights
You
but
there.
could
Linda-
put lighting all around the edges of the deck. I'm just
No,
saying, I
I'm not
think it would
going
be
there.
good to show a plan that
Yeah.
shows that there are not those lights all around the edge of the
Because we
deck.
definitely have requested that before when someone has, like, if there's a cabana or a shed that has lighting on it, that's gonna like show on the decking or on the pool, the,
Any uplighting?
what is it called? The
No
thing around the
uplighting.
pool?
No uplighting?
No lighting.
I mean, it all sounds great to me. I just think we need to go on record with a plan showing the lack of the lighting
Then
that we're
the way to
discussing.
do that is to say, no, all the lights that are on the houses, because they're attached.
Yep.
The lights that are on the houses, there's probably going to be a sconce on both sides of the French doors and a sconce on the doors coming out of the existing house, which is, attached to this one.
I just know how the process of construction goes, and I'll go to a job site and I'll call out for lights somewhere during the process of construction.
Landscape
And that could
lighting.
change between
That's
now and
fine.
then.
We'll say no
No
landscape
landscape
lighting, no deck lighting.
Okay. That's good. I
There'll
feel
be,
comfortable
there'll
with
be
that.
lights on the house, but no deck lighting and no
Yeah.
landscape lighting
Yeah.
over there.
Okay.
I'm cool
Yeah.
with that.
So, Madam Chair, just a general comment, not to prolong this, but I'm all for some of these clarifications if that's what the Mattocket community wants. I mean, it might delay this process, but I don't have a problem with making some of these changes,
I agree.
except for those that are required by code that, such as the pool light.
Can I have one more comment about the
It's not
word
really set in stone,
substantially?
but it
That's
would
your
be-
word.
It's good to get input from the neighborhood on some of these.
I
Well, he's
agree.
not in
I
a
don't
butter,
have a
first off,
problem
but
with,
beside that.
I don't-
Just the word,
Linda.
I understand.
I just had one more comment that I wrote down. The word substantially conforming is a word that's been used at the ZBA for 50 years. It's not whatever Bruce suggested. The word that is always in your decisions is substantially conforming. So if it's an inch here, that's substantially conforming. That's why the word is used. It's your word. It was a word I inherited in '83 when we were doing the decisions back then. So to change it all of a sudden to something that has no basis would be very concerning to the rest of us.
I'm not
Then we can-
suggesting that we just
No.
wholeheartedly adopt what he's asking for. I'm just
What
saying
are the
I'm
exact
open to
words?
these changes.
He
And
said,
Arthur, is this a term of art that is utilized?
mean, both
And-
sound-
And that's important.
Like they're,
Neither one is a specifically defined term of art, obviously. Reasonable and substantial are both
Same thing.
subject to interpretation.
Yes.
And I think that the reason that you have substantially in there is the fact that this is an imperfect world. And there is, in the field, always some minor deviation from what shows on a plan that's drawn in an office. And the point here is that if it is very close, it's reasonable. And if it's very close, it's substantially in conformance.
they both mean the same
I think they basically
thing.
mean the same thing.
Yeah.
And I would agree with Linda that since substantially has been used in this situation, for years and years, that's the word to stick with rather than changing to reasonable. I don't think there's really any difference between the two. I just think it's more consistent to refer to it as substantial.
so I was going to say before Linda, you cut me off, was that I think that under condition H, where it says done in substantial conformity, so in F, it just said substantially. I think for the Mattocket homeowners association or whatever they're calling it, now we could change it from installed substantially as shown on the plan to installed in substantial, what do we say here? In substantial conformity as we did in H. So it's the same thing. It means the same thing. It gives that wiggle room, but it also is consistent.
That's fine. It means the same
I-
thing.
Yeah, so, all right, so I think the conditions that we have in the standard that I was using as my standard are all covered in what Linda has. I think we could tweak a little language to make them, to make hers a little bit more detailed. But before we look at that, I think we do want to either ask for a lighting plan or add a condition that there's, to the description of the lighting, that there is no lighting on the deck, no landscape lighting, and, of course, any lighting is in conformance with the code and turned off by 10 o'clock each night.
One other thing, what he mentioned,
Okay.
Madam
Nantucket.
Chair,
Yep.
and I didn't really understand, I don't even know if this is a standard, but the shining, if you could repeat it, shining of light outside the boundary, I don't.
Well, that's the
know.
dark skies that you're going to add now.
Okay.
That's
so
already
that
in the
covers
bylaw.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair? just a
Yes.
moment. I stand corrected in the term traveled way. Thank you very much. The purpose here is we're seeing more and more pools presented applications for the Mattocket community. And we feel that the usual conditions that we've been talking about are good. What we're suggesting is just one or two 3 additions to it. For example, when you say you want a lighting plan, just showing the fixtures doesn't give you the full knowledge of what that means on a property.
So,
So you should be asking, in my opinion, for a lighting plan, including photometric diagram for each light fixture. And that shows you the pattern that the light throws on the ground.
so we have done that, on the ones where they do have a more, or if there was lighting around the pool or landscape lighting and that kind of thing, we have done that in the past. But the last few that we've had have really reduced the lighting that they put out there. So I totally get what you're saying, and if there was gonna be lighting on the deck or lighting around, I think we would require that, and we have required it in the past. But where the applicant is saying that the only lighting is gonna be the lighting inside the pool that's required by code, and then a light on the
Structures.
house and a light on the, entrance and egress, then those, we don't really have jurisdiction over that part of it, I think. So
Well,
We can then
the
res-
HDC sent me here when we brought that up. They said,
right,
go
and
to
that's
ZBA.
that's totally fine, because I don't think the HDC deals, maybe I'm mistaken, they don't deal with the lighting, so they wouldn't necessarily ask for a lighting plan, or
Right.
it wouldn't matter to them in the sense of approval if there was landscape lighting, whereas to us, if there were gonna be those little lights, even if they're downlit around the deck, then we would wanna know how high are they, how big is that cone of light, and that kind of thing, and we have asked for that in the past, but the applicant's saying there's none of that, so there's nothing to, then the condition we put in is that there is no exterior lighting on the deck, no landscape lighting, and any lighting that exists
Meets the dark
is gonna
skies.
have to meet the dark
I don't
sky
know.
standard.
I don't know if you look at the entire project here. It's a beautiful project. It's got an outdoor connecting, it's got a beautiful fireplace outdoor, it's got a nice new building. You don't have a lighting plan. You don't know what lights are on these buildings and what they're shining at.
Right, but the
And
only.
that's our concern.
I understand your concern, and for us, the only thing that that we have the jurisdiction over is granting a special permit to allow for the pool. It doesn't extend to the whole project. If the whole project was, if the house was trying to be in the setback, or was an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming, something like that, where that was the subject of a special permit or a variance request, then yes, we would look more detailed at the structures, but we're not looking at those for
I
this.
understand what you're saying, and these comments I'm making about the conditions that we would like to see added to your conditions, we're not picking on this pool.
No, I understand that.
We are concerned that these conditions be modified a little bit, some additions, some tweaks, and applied to any pool application in Nantucket going forward. We're trying to preserve the unique characteristics, and basically Nantucket is being attacked the same way the rest of the island is, with density development and some of these big projects. And, let's be realistic. A lot of these pool applications we're seeing in Nantucket are amenities to short-term rentals, which it's a whole nother subject. But if we're reviewing a pool, we have to review it in the context of the entire project and how it affects everything. You're talking about vegetation on M Street. That has nothing to do with the pool that you're reviewing.
Well, no,
It has
that-
to do with the process of putting the pool in.
So that part of it, we do have jurisdiction over, and the bylaw says that if a lot meets, in your district, meets certain criteria, then we shall grant a special permit.
Okay.
So if it meets that criteria, what we can do is condition it so that it, exactly to your point, tries to preserve the unique character of
Thank you.
Nantucket. So that is our goal, is to allow, if it meets the criteria that the town has decided is okay for a pool, then we grant the special permit, but we condition it so that it protects the neighbors and the greater Nantucket community.
Thank you. And our wording for indigenous mature vegetation, you know, matures.
It's a point well taken.
You understand that,
Chair?
you know, we're not talking about mature 20 feet tall buildings. We're talking about plants that are established and growing and are reasonably high enough to perform the function of helping to conceal from visibility.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Meg Lemare has a
I'm
comment.
wondering if anyone on the board would support two changes to these conditions. One, as far as the vegetation goes, that the vegetation has to be consistent size-wise and to what's around it. Number two, that whoever the builder is of this project, that he signs an affidavit that he has received a copy of our conditions, assuming we approve it.
I agree with that.
And my comments about DPW standards is not meant to say DPW maintains the dirt roads.
Okay.
It's meant to say DPW grades public dirt roads in Nantucket, and they have the standard of how they should be graded with a crown on them and whatnot, and they should not have soft sand in them where they have to come back and apply hardener. So it's just a matter of protecting those dirt roads that are still unpaved and not public yet, but a matter of making them comply to what they look like before
Understood.
construction started.
Yep, understood.
Thank you.
Yep, okay. Do we want to try to read the conditions that we have? Okay. I'm just going to go through Linda's, and then if I say something that someone has a question or comment about on the board, let me know. Okay. So, A, all chemical treatments of the pool water shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. If this is not feasible, I think we should, it says infeasible. I like infeasible. If this is infeasible, it's the language I'm reading from here, Linda. If this is infeasible, the owner shall engage a professional company to discharge the pool water in a tanker and dispose of it at the wastewater treatment facility. If a municipal water source is not available, the owner shall engage a professional company to fill the pool as needed. The pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st of any given year. All exterior lighting related to the pool area, including the deck, shall comply with the provisions of Chapter 102 of the Code, be turned off by 10 a.m. each night,
PM.
shall be downlit.
That should say PM, Madam Chair.
It does say.
Does.
I'm
Sorry, okay. There shall,
If we specify pool deck lighting, that means that there is landscape lighting, so I think we should just,
well, I haven't finished yet.
oh,
The owner shall use low voltage lighting for all exterior lighting. There shall be no lighting on the deck surface, no landscape lights. All lighting shall be in conformance with the dark skies bylaw? Is that?
This is chapter 102, which you have above it.
Okay. Let's see. The location of the pool, landscaping, the location of the pool equipment and landscaping shall be installed in substantial conformity with the Bistany-Rubenstein concept plan, submitted with the HDC application and approved by the HDC on July 5th, 2022, prepared by Brooke Mergerbean. So that's page 81 of the packet. Okay.
Want to attach that as Exhibit A?
Yes, please, and attached here too is Exhibit A. The landscaping shall be restored to previous condition restore to previous condition, including age and height, with native plantings to mitigate pool visibility.
And that's on M Street, correct?
In substantial conformity with the plan mentioned above, or whatever, or attached here to, or however you want to put it. Oh, sorry, hold on. Linda, hold on. Sorry, Leslie, back to the one about the exterior lighting. I wanted to say including underwater lighting, right? Like in the water lighting, right? So then that complies with code and is turned off at 10 p.m. each night, unless that's a code violation. It has to be left on all night inside pool?
It has to be left on.
What?
If the pool is uncovered.
Well, then they have to cover it. They have an electric cover. They don't want to have a fence. They want to do an electric cover. They have to cover the pool and turn off the lights.
So they can't be in their pool after 10 o'clock? When- I
Well,
don't think
all
they
the
can.
lighting is supposed to go off at 10 o'clock. So if they have to have lighting for code, but the code says lighting has to go off after 10, then they can't be in their pool after 10.
You haven't done that before. Maybe. It's
Well-
on the pool lighting, the code compliant pool lighting, because they may be swimming at 11 o'clock at night, this woman swimming back and forth, that light must be on. So any of your other decisions have not said anything about shutting the
Well,
pool
that's
light
the
off.
first time we've addressed this, because you said they're leaving the cover, they're using this cover.
Yes, when they're not there, when they're not in it. But if they happen to be in it and one person's swimming at 11 o'clock at night, which they're allowed to do in
But if
every
the
other
light,
application.
but if the, well, I'm just learning of this, so if the lighting, if the dark skies lighting says that all the lights have to be off by 10 o'clock, that includes,
It does not say that. Dark
Leslie,
skies
what's
does
your,
not say
what's your
that. And it doesn't say that
input?
about pools.
Linda,
That's already.
let
in
me
the
talk
pool.
to Leslie.
It's not a downlight.
The lighting bylaw does not say that lights have to be off by 10.
Any lights.
No.
But we have said that lights have to be off by 10 o'clock in our decisions for
Correct.
these.
What
Okay.
about dark skies?
Related to the pool.
Linda, yeah, related to the pool, they're in the pool, that's
No,
related to the pool.
landscape lighting and all that other stuff had to be off by 10, because that was just obnoxious.
Well, I don't think we've ever addressed this before.
Yeah, and I have never heard it addressed where the pool light has to be off.
Well,
if
because
the
it was
pool's
just
not
brought
covered.
up, it was just brought up.
But the pool light is in the pool, it's not downlit, it's not lighting anything out. The
I
light
don't know, what do you,
bylaw
what does
is
anyone on the
scatter
board have?
light.
Linda,
I've never heard this before. and I
neither
think
have I,
it's
that we
dangerous.
just, it just came
But
up
I
as
think
an
it's
issue.
dangerous for you to take the code issue.
Well, I'm gonna talk to the board.
concern is they're left on
Sir, I'm
all
sorry.
night.
Sir, so what do we think? Because we're talking about this dark skies, we're talking about, the lights being off. We've always said the lights go off by 10. I think it had, at least for me, I had assumed when we were saying the lighting needs to be turned off by 10, I assumed, shame on me, that we were talking about all the lighting, including the lights in the pool.
It was always the landscape lighting in the other decisions. Landscape lighting, all that. other
Linda,
crap.
I've heard you. I'm talking to the board now, and the board will tell me what they think. I am one person, and this is what I think, but obviously the code trumps. Does anyone have a comment, or am I?
I think you're right on base.
But I do understand if somebody doesn't want to swim in their pool at 11 o'clock at night to be
They should,
safe. I don't want to swim in a dark pool.
No, I wouldn't
at 11
either.
At night, but I
then that
just.
could
But I also don't live in
move to-
Nantucket.
To other parts of the island.
It's also hidden from the road anyway because of
That's
the
not what we're
bench
talking
and
about.
everything else.
Linda, let us
I'm
talk.
having a hard time with this one.
I can see that, so just let us talk and work it through. So, I get that the code, Leslie, doesn't mention a time for lighting to be turned off, for any lighting, even with dark skies and for downlit in Matticat.
Right.
The only time that's referenced in the code is recreational lighting,
Mhm.
and the lighting enforcement officer is here, but I believe that's been interpreted to mean, here's exactly what it says.
Okay.
Outdoor recreational lighting must be fully shielded and turned off by 10 p.m. or at the conclusion of a competition begun before 10 p.m. And in no case may the lighting remain on after midnight.
So
So I
that
believe
seems-
that's been interpreted to mean like at a club
Or like the football field.
or the football field or
So
something
I
like
think-
that, not at someone's
I mean, I
home.
would prefer all lighting to be shut off at 10, but if the state code requires it to be on when someone's in it. I don't,
Yeah, then we can't do anything about that.
yeah, so I don't.
Okay.
it's-
We're certainly going to meet dark skies.
All right, well, let's just strike that last little comment I made that says including underwater lighting, and it'll just say all exterior lighting related to the pool and decking shall
Meet
comply
dark-
with the provisions of the chapter 102 of the town code and turned off by 10 PM each night and shall be downlit.
But, can we reference, maybe not in this case we should indicate, but I want to stake in the ground what the lighting is right now, and
So-
not, or the plan,
It's on the house.
So no,
so that things can't be added later.
yeah, no lighting on the deck. Linda has offered, there's no lighting on the deck.
No landscape.
There's no landscape lighting, and all lighting will be in conformity with 102 and dark skies. Yeah.
But I'm talking in the future, it should reference plan, we should, if they're including lighting.
Yeah, and so the first few that we did in Nantucket did have a lot more outdoor lighting.
Yeah.
And I think it's before they started bringing up, there was a presentation about dark skies, and that sort of became more of a common discussion point. So personally, I think the lighting that we've seen with future applications or the most recent applications, the amount of lighting outdoor related to the pool has consistently gone down.
And less and less.
It's been less and less, yeah. But so Linda's offered that, and we'll accept it. No lighting on the deck, no landscape lights, and all
Can
lighting
I
will
offer a
comply.
compromise?
And
Can
I
you-
believe
no.
The zoning officer
Oh,
would like to speak.
sure, Marcus.
Pardon, the lighting officer.
Lighting officer, Marcus Silverstein.
Marcus Silverstein, lighting officer. I didn't say anything about all the dark sky talk because it was just conversation. But Dark Skies is a private volunteer group, neighborhood group. It has nothing to do with the town, so any conditions relative to, I don't know, whatever their mission statements are or whatever like that, it's not enforceable. So I'm just asking to leave out mention of dark skies within any
Sorry,
conditions.
will do. The only reason I actually added it was because Linda
Yeah, it's
Cor-
kind
tried-
of, I mean,
corrected-
it's how we refer to it.
corrected
but-
me and said that it was dark skies, so I actually wrote that in after. Okay, so we'll just leave out just in conformity with chapter 102 of the code. Okay, so, I think we were on letter F, right? I did say owner shall use low voltage lighting for all exterior lighting. The location of the pool equipment, and landscaping shall be in substantial conformity, I did say that, sorry, as shown on the plan.
I think we should reiterate them saying that the pool equipment is going under the deck.
It is, it's on here.
Oh, it is,
It is,
okay.
yep. So sorry, so I don't know where we got off track here, but the landscaping, oh, I think I got us off on track, sorry. The landscaping shall be installed in substantial conformity with the plan referenced above, restored to previous condition, including age and height with native plantings, and also as needed to mitigate any pool visibility. All work shall be done in substantial conformity with the plan approved in conjunction with certificate of appropriateness number blah, 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 duly issued by the HDC. All mechanical equipment associated with the pool shall be located in a subterranean vault as shown on the plan or as noted on the plan.
Would you mind reading G again when you get a chance?
Yep. The owner shall grade M Street prior to sign off of the pool. Shall grade M Street between Tennessee and Washington prior to sign off on the pool. And G, the landscaping shall be installed. Well, the landscaping shall be installed, the landscaping shall be, any disruption to the landscaping as shown on the plan shall be restored to previous condition, including the age and height with native plantings.
I would say native, indigenous plantings.
Okay.
And I don't know that we can necessarily say age because I don't know where we're gonna get a 10-year-old
All right, so,
bayberry, but.
okay, so height
Height.
or,
Yeah. Height and size.
yeah, all right, fine. Height, yeah, that's good. Height
Yeah.
and size with indigenous plantings, to restore the landscaping and to mitigate pool visibility as needed,
Great.
right?
Madam-
Augment,
Madam Chair, on that regrading, can we put in some language, you know, similar to the DPW's grading of roads in the area, just something,
yeah,
some
sure,
reference.
okay. So, the owner shall regrade M Street to the standards used by the DPW on public roads,
Similar to-
similar to, prior to sign off on the pool. And then, Michael had asked that we have a condition that the owner shall have the builder sign an affidavit,
That he received the
that he
plan.
received the plans and a copy of the conditions prior to starting the project. What do you think?
How about prior to the issuance of a building permit?
Yeah,
Yeah, perfect.
that's great.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone in the audience, Arthur, do you have something to add?
No, not at this point.
Okay. Did you want to add anything else
I
at this
just want
point?
to make a suggestion, because I heard the comments about safety in case someone wants to swim after 10 PM. And I was wondering, I don't think our group would be opposed to a pool light being turned on if someone is actively in it swimming until, let's say, that I think there's a requirement, everything's got to be off by midnight. Is that what you said, Ms. Snell?
I believe that's only for recreational, larger scale projects.
Okay, so the recreational activity of swimming in a private pool doesn't apply to that. But I was just thinking if there was a way to compromise so that if someone is physically in the pool until a certain hour, let's say midnight, in accordance with this, that they could have a pool on for safety purposes. But when they're not in the pool, it has to be turned off.
I'm not going to agree to that.
I don't see too many people using the pools in Nantucket after sunset.
I don't think that that's something that we can get involved with.
Okay, thank you
But
very much.
practically, yes, that does make sense, but I don't.
Just something I thought of, and I
Yeah.
thought I'd bounce off you. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so does anyone have any comments about or additions to those conditions? No. Would someone like to make a motion then?
Motion to approve with the conditions you just read.
Second.
Michael seconds, okay. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that carries unanimously. Okay. Okay. Moving on. What's the address on that one?
51.
Tennessee. So next we have all right, so we'll go to, sorry. So next we have 2221 Adam Delaney Wynn, trustee of Warren's Landing Nominee Trust. Arthur Reed is presenting for the applicant. Mr. Reed, you have the floor.
Attorney Arthur Reed for the applicant. Let me approach the bench, if you will, and present some materials that I'd like you all to have in front of you as I present them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I represent the applicant in this matter, the appellant, actually, from the enforcement orders that have been issued by the zoning zoning compliance officer, Mr. Silverstein. And I think we wind up with really very few issues here, and I think we can get this resolved rather straightforwardly. But let me run through the project, the property, and explain what's going on here. The question is the enforcement order as having been given with regard to the property as having two driveway entrances. Now, the first sheet of what I just handed out to each of you shows that the property has frontage on both Warren's Landing Road on its north side, where there is a very clear and apparent driveway entrance. And then it also fronts on the southeast, on a dirt road known as Blue Heron Way, a private way. And as you can see, there is a grassy area that extends from the driveway on the property and extends out to and meets Blue Heron Way. And that is the 2019 aerial survey, aerial mapping from the town's GIS site. The next sheet is the 2007, more than 10 years ago, I would note, aerial photo, which shows essentially exactly the same thing. And going back then to the third sheet that I've presented to you, which is the 2003. And you can see that in 2003, it was substantially the same. There are trees, what appear to be overhanging trees over the property that make the grassy area a little harder to differentiate, but you can still see that it's there. And if you go back to 1998, the fourth sheet, interestingly, at that time there were two driveway entrances from Warren's Landing Road. One of those looks as if it was starting to get grown over, and on the later maps, you don't see it, well, you hardly see it at all because it's obviously been grown over since. And you have areas of clearance that you can see, again, largely obstructed by trees, but showing that there is a grassy area running out to Blue Heron Way. Now, again, the bylaw came into existence in 1998, prohibiting two driveway entrances. There is a question that I don't think we need to resolve, which for reasons that I will get into, as to whether the rear entrance constitutes a driveway that may have been in existence prior to 1998. But we're not going to make an argument that puts that in play. We do have rights in Blue Heron Way, and I want to make that point clear. The next sheet is Land Court Plan 16956A, and our property is located within Lot A on that plan. Blue Heron Way is the way that is shown as abutting that on the south. If you go to the next sheet, it shows the way, and it shows the land registered by the Land Court in the area to the south, and it shows the property where we are as being land of Marcus L. Ramsdell. The land to the south now belongs to people named Harold and Ann Buttrick. And I have as the next sheet their certificate of title, which specifically says, so much of the above described land as is included within the limits of the way at the northerly side of said land as shown on said plan is subject to rights of way for the benefit of said Butler land and said Ramsdell land. Butler land being on the previous plan what you see immediately to the west of my client's property, and Ramsdell being the predecessor of our client. And there's a pertinent to said land the right to use the whole of said way in common with others entitled thereto. So, on the basis of that, we understand that there's been a historic use, to some extent, of the grassy area in question. Whether it's been used actually as an active driveway is a question, but what we definitely have is a grassy area that comes from the area surrounding my client's dwelling and extends out to Blue Heron Way. And it meets Blue Heron Way at grade. Now, I've had communication with Mr. Silverstein about the resolution of this matter. And we agree that you're only allowed to have one driveway entrance without special permit from the planning board. So therefore, and at the same time, obviously the driveway entrance that we are using is the one on Warren's Landing Road. The grassy area in question meets Blue Heron Way at grade. It's possible for a car to drive into it. It's also possible for a car to drive into any lightly vegetated area that meets a road at grade. That doesn't make it a driveway. So what we have proposed would be that we enter into a stipulation, and my client is prepared to sign that, and we've presented that to Mr. Silverstein, which you have as the next sheet in my package. And behind that, some correspondence we've had with Marcus. And it is a proposed stipulation between the owner and the zoning enforcement officer that, one, the owner shall not have more than one vehicular access unless and until a special permit for a second driveway access is issued by the planning board under the bylaw, which simply recites what the bylaw provides. The owner shall not have vehicular access for the property to and from the way abutting the property along its southerly boundary known as Blue Heron Way, so long as there are driveway access to the property at a different location. Corollary of the fact that you can only have one driveway entrance. The zoning enforcement officer will not assert any fine or other penalty against the owner for any past use of driveway access to Blue Heron Way. I haven't had a direct discussion about that with Marcus. It's certainly something I want to get off the table because I think we're trying to get this resolved in an appropriate fashion. And that if that were done, we would withdraw the appeal. Now, that has not actually been done, and we've had some communication back and forth, which I've given you, but I don't think we need to go into in any detail. The photographs that follow that, which we took last weekend on the site, show Blue Heron Way at the point where this grassy area intersects it. And you can see that Blue Heron Way is a very narrow dirt road. I'm standing over at the side of the road. You can see my car. And you can see the grassy area of my client's lot as it meets Blue Heron Way. Now, it's grassy. The grass is a little bit more sparse at the edge of the road, and I suspect that that is probably because when two cars meet on Blue Heron Way, they can't get past each other. And so on those occasions, presumably one of them would pull into my client's property slightly in order to allow the other car to pass. I don't know if that for a fact. I haven't seen it in practice, but I think it's completely consistent with what I see in terms of the vegetation going on to the next sheet. Again, you can see that the grass extends out to the road, but it's more sparse in the area with this picture having been taken from the road. And then looking down through the grassy area, you can see it's been mowed. My clients use it to walk and to ride bikes going out toward Blue Heron Way. They don't use it for vehicular access. It hasn't been used for vehicular access at any recent time, and they are perfectly willing to stipulate, as indicated above, that they will not use it for vehicular access unless and until they were to comply with the provision requiring them to have no more than one driveway access without special permit. In other words, if they were to get a special permit, or, and this would be an extreme and remote hypothetical, if they were to close off their driveway entrance to Warren's Landing Road, which they have no intention of doing, they would still have the legal right to use this. Now, in order to do that, they would have to go to the Conservation Commission because of the proximity of this grassy area to the area to its right as you face it from Blue Heron Way, which is largely wetland. And again, they have no plan to do that. They do have rights of passage, rights to enter their property from Blue Heron Way, which they intend to use only for non-vehicular access and not as a driveway. And then the final picture simply shows the driveway as it comes in from Warren's Landing Road. That's a driveway. What we're looking at by way of this grassy area is not a driveway. When we filed the appeal, I was taking some different positions with regard to its status as a driveway and the history of it. And I think that those could be pursued because I think from the history of aerial photographs, there's an indication that the driveway has, that the grassy area has existed for more than 10 years and possibly back before the 1998 amendment to the bylaw. But we're not pursuing that point, and we have no intention of doing anything other than operating within the terms of the bylaw and with using Warren's Landing Road exclusively, the driveway from Warren's Landing Road exclusively for vehicular access to the property. I'd like to get the matter resolved, and I think that's the point of coming before you today. And I think if we can agree upon there being some stipulation, which we would file in the building department file on this property, that, along the lines of what I had proposed, that would be the most efficient way of resolving the matter. And I'm interested in any comments that Marcus may have, as well as obviously the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus, I'm sorry. Marcus, do you want to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Marcus Silverstein, zoning officer. We know several things for certain. In the early 70s, when 40 Warren's Landing was part of a much larger property, we know there was a driveway that snaked from Warren's Landing down to the same general area of this current access. We know that in 1998, the aerial shows conclusively that that whole area had been grown over. This would have been at least a few years after the subdivision. Also in 98, it became a requirement to have a special permit to have more than one curb cut driveway access on your property. And we know by the 2003 aerial, the access was restored. We also know that at the time, in 2019, that the citation was issued, this by way of, I believe, the owner telling me that it was used largely by landscape crews to get in and out of the property and to move his boat in and out, or some such like that. So it has been used as a driveway. Been by randomly over the past few months to see if there's any sign of use. Recently, I can say there hasn't been that I've found. But I think that's immaterial, and even the best wishes that we're never going to use this again. My reluctance in accepting the letter that Arthur was just mentioning, twofold, really. The entire intention was this letter would go in the building department file, and that's pretty much it. And without trying to be glib, the letter itself is basically, we promise not to keep violating the bylaw. And by that, I really mean driving over it, okay? But the access is what's the violation, not the driveway. And in regards to the access, since it has been used that way, since we're not going to have 24-hour surveillance on it, and otherwise, oh, well, we just used it that 1 week because nobody was around and we needed to get stuff, it just leaves it open. The reluctance, I have no issue, they want to use that way to walk in and out of their property and walk down Heron. Certainly a nicer walk than going out on Warren's Landing. But the reluctance to pinch that thing down to prevent any kind of vehicular use was really the final deciding as to whether or not I was going to sign off on this letter. Essentially, this can all be resolved by a few well-placed boulders, a partial split rail fence, obviously letting it grow over or grow in anyway. Some effort on the part of the property owner beyond just a pinky swear that it can't be used. This way, everybody knows it can't be used. So, and I'm not talking about movable planters like they keep using at Dreamland, which keep moving. I'm on it. That's really it, I guess. As of between 1998 and 2003, when this was restored, it became a zoning violation. And since he mentioned it early on, the 10-year statute has to do with violations of conditions of special permits, variances, or structures that somebody got away with building a building on their property in a setback over ground cover 11 years ago. They can skate. They get to keep that. But it doesn't have anything to do with uses or this sort of situation. Thank you.
Okay. Just, I know. So just to be clear, as the stipulation stands now, you're not going to sign it?
So as it was all laid out, I wasn't willing to accept it.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Marcus or Arthur before I go to Attorney Carey?
Just one clarification. You do agree that they have non-vehicular access to that?
What's that?
The town's in agreement that they have non-vehicular access?
No, I think they
Not
have very
pedestrian.
simple vehicular access. What I said was, it does not appear on the random stops. I've been out maybe 4 times in the last 3 months. Does not appear to be in any kind of regular use currently.
No, but you would agree that they have pedestrian access through that?
Oh, yeah,
And
of course.
everything, not everything but vehicles?
yes.
Okay.
Well, while we've got Marcus,
Yeah.
I'd like to, Marcus,
I'm not willing, maybe not horse-drawn carriage either, any kind
I
of.
got
are
you.
you okay with putting up a split rail fence that only allows
Yeah, three,
the body
5
to go
foot,
through
yeah.
it one time?
How about a big rock that's not easily broken down like a split
Yeah,
rail
it's
fence is?
Same idea.
Any kind of permanent fixture that will prohibit any kind of vehicle use of that area until they get their special permit.
Are we gonna listen to comments, or can we?
I was gonna, if anybody has anything for Marcus or Arthur, we can go with that, and then I was gonna go over to Attorney Carey, who's representing the.
One question for
Yep, sure.
Arthur. Marcus's letter keeps referencing the planning board, and I assume you worked out the procedural part. It's not the planning board that has the say in this, or agree to the stipulation? It's the-
Jim, if we were to apply for a second driveway access,
Mhm.
that would be a special permit that would be issued by the planning board. what we have here, and we're not asking for that.
Right.
What we are handling here is technically an appeal from what Marcus sent by way of an enforcement order, and any appeal on a zoning matter is exclusively before the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So
Okay,
our-
so I'm a little confused what you're asking, because if we uphold the appeal, you agree with it, in a way, right? You agree that vehicular access is not allowed?
We question the original issuance of the order because we believe that in good faith and with the history of the use of the road, that it did not constitute a violation that should result in the imposition of a penalty.
Okay.
Notwithstanding that, we are willing to agree not to use this for vehicular access of any type. But to go one step beyond that on what Marcus had raised, we're not willing to place any barrier across it. And I can see two reasons for that. One, first of all, if we were required to place a barrier, that would be tantamount to saying that everyone who had a grassy or lightly vegetated area directly abutting at grade a road would have to put up a fence or boulders or some sort of impediment. Secondly, I think there's a public safety issue involved here, which I noted when I was at the site, and noted the fact that the vegetation was more sparse right within this grassy area as it meets the street than as you get away from the street, or not hardly a street, the road, Blue Heron Way. And I think that what has happened is pretty clearly what I said, namely that cars pull over and use that de facto as not to drive in, but as a means of avoiding, the head-on problems that you have on any narrow dirt road. And I think that it's probably in the public interest that there be that, as there are several other places along that road where people pull in and turn around or whatever, as I did when I was turning around out there last weekend.
So to that, I would say that then if he was concerned with public safety, you could certainly put the rock back a little bit, or the fence, the split rail back a little bit, to allow people to still have that ability to pull over. But so back to your point, Jim, what we're looking at, the stipulation here would be an agreement between Arthur and Marcus to take this out of our hands. What we're looking to decide is whether we uphold Marcus's decision that this grassy area that was cleared out to the width to allow vehicles in and out, that could allow vehicles in and out, and that the owner has said that landscape crews had used it, or it's how he gets his boat back and forth in the past, that Marcus has determined that whether or not that use is happening now, the way that that grassy area is constructed and was used at some point in the past, and was after the bylaw came back in 98, Marcus has determined that constitutes driveway. Whether or not right now someone is using it or not, it isn't. He has quantified it as a curb cut. And so if we support Marcus, then we side with him on his determination. And then if the owners want to keep that the way that it is, then they will need to get a special permit from the planning board to have that secondary curb cut. Even if we uphold Marcus, Arthur and Marcus can then go back and, rework this stipulation and agree to whatever they want to.
All I'm saying is what I'm hearing is everybody but you agree with us in upholding Marcus's decision. We don't have anyone, there's no dispute here, is my point. And do we really have say in a stipulation? And
No.
Can we make someone put a fence up or boulders? I don't think so. I think we're merely here to either uphold
Yes. Yeah, we have nothing to do with the stipulation.
Yeah,
That's between
and-
them.
And everybody's asking for the same thing here.
I don't see it that way, but yes, we're
Okay.
only on.
I have a couple of minor
Sure.
questions that maybe impact things, maybe don't. Is anything stored by the owner on their property in this area
No,
any time of year? No boat?
no.
Where's the boat that they need access to?
The boat that they need access to?
Yeah, wasn't there some talk about this access is
Think I-
for,
Not- My clients are not using this access at the present time for anything other than foot or bicycle.
okay.
But I think the
but-
fact is they could. That's
could use it
that's
for
the
boat
that's where this
access.
is turning on.
And-
They
But
drive
are
on
you
just
asking
about
us
anything.
to
It's level.
overturn Marcus's,
Huh?
are you asking us to overturn Marcus's?
I would ask you to overturn Marcus's decision insofar as it imposed a financial penalty, which of course has never been enforced and never been paid.
Okay, I got you.
I have no issue with Marcus as to the issue that this grassy area is not to be used as a driveway and as an entry point to the property for vehicles.
I have a follow-up
So we can
comment,
waive that
question.
in our decision, I guess.
But-
Waive the fee is what is that, or the penalty or whatever.
But if this were to become or if you were to ask for this to be a legal second curb cut, you'd have to go through the layer of Conservation Commission
I would have,
first.
in fact, that's a separate issue from the planning board.
But that,
I could
okay.
go to the planning board and get it approved, but I still couldn't construct a driveway there.
Mhm. So
without-
where this would be a driveway would be within the 100-foot setback of a wetland.
In fact, within the 25-foot setback of the
Enter-
wetland.
Okay.
What?
But
This
what does
issue
that
came
mean,
up, if
construct
I
a
may.
driveway? Like, you just,
Huh?
you can, what does that mean, construct a driveway?
Put down hardener.
No, a
gravel.
driveway can be dirt, a driveway
Yeah,
can be
true.
anything it doesn't have to be that. So,
So,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to clarify the procedure piece. So if we overturn Marcus, are we saying then, are we agreeing then you have a legal vehicular right?
I think you would be overturning him only on the facts of the case as to it's not actually constituting a driveway and therefore not being subject to enforcement against it.
And are we listening to any of the neighbors that are seeing the use of
well,
this?
she's,
We're about-
we're
Oh,
waiting.
oh,
Yeah, we
okay.
were, I was just
All right,
gonna,
sorry.
I wanted to go
Sorry.
through that first. Okay. Okay, so does everyone want to hear from the neighbors? Okay, so this is Attorney Jennifer Carey you represent 34 and 32?
34 and 32, yes. And I actually have an aerial of the 1998. I think you might have a copy, but I brought it.
Who are you?
Thank you. What'd you say?
Who is she?
So this is Attorney Carey. She works in Sarah Elger's office, representing two of the abutters, or two of the families, 34 and 32 Warren's Landing.
Mhm.
Hi, so Jennifer Carey for Sarah Buttrick and Dan and Judith Drake. They own 32 and 34 Warren's Landing, like you said. I mean, first, the owner's appeal says that the second driveway pre-exists 139 20.1 B1, and it doesn't. I think the 98 aerial shows that pretty clearly. As such, the neighbors would argue that the owner needs a special permit to install a second driveway. Even if the driveway did exist in 1971, it didn't exist in 98. So that being the case, they would have to ask for a special permit to put a second driveway in. Secondly, my clients report that the second driveway onto Blue Heron is being used as a driveway periodically for vehicular access to Blue Heron. So they're concerned with the stipulation, and I know perhaps you don't have, you're not really getting into that between the owner and Marcus. But the issue is that they don't believe, like Marcus said, that would really stop the owner from using the driveway as vehicular access to Blue Heron Way. The 2 citations that were issued by the zoning enforcement officer didn't stop them from using it, so why would a stipulation? So they would ask that, like you were discussing, that vehicular access be impeded, whether with plantings or a fence or a boulder. And they don't have any problem with his continuing to access Blue Heron Way for pedestrian use or to ride his bicycle or whatever he's doing there. So we would ask that you do overturn the appeal, that you do deny the appeal, and enforce what the zoning officer is recommending.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Attorney Carey? Marcus.
Just to put my own spin on what's happening here. The appeal, the order is that this is a secondary driveway access. The physical driveway itself, after you get past the entrance, has nothing to do, I mean, we have some width limitations, whatever. But it has to do with the access itself. The order is that they add a driveway access secondary without a special permit. They do not have a special permit. They do and have had their secondary access. As I've said, I am certainly aware of the past use of it, and if it's still being used, well, because it can be used that way. So essentially, you're either upholding the violation, at which point the stipulation or whatever other negotiations, that's basically the stipulation, is to resolve a violation. Doesn't really have to do with you all. You uphold the violation, then enforcement continues until we get it resolved, which I would imagine wouldn't take that much longer. If you overturn, uphold the appeal, then violation order's gone, and I guess we start fresh pending new evidence if any ever comes up. I feel the violation is solid and implore you to uphold it.
Does anyone on the board have any additional comments? Or Arthur, did you have something to say?
Yeah, if I may, a couple of points. By the way, this plan is the same as the fourth sheet of what I presented to you before, so we're talking about the same thing. And interestingly, and again, this is not something that we need to pursue, but if you take a look at this plan, it clearly shows a clearing right at the point where the present grassy area meets Blue Heron Way. And it also appears a little bit to the northwest of that as well, with probably an overhanging tree in between. And although I think that the configuration of it may have changed over the years, I think there really probably was the ability to pull a car in from Blue Heron Way, as shown on this plan, back in 1998. Whether it was used for that purpose, how it was used, we don't know. But my client has only owned the property for 2 or 3 years. In fact, the first notice that Marcus had sent on this was sent to the previous property owner after my client already owned it. In any event, however, the point here is that, as I said earlier, the idea that there would need to be some physical obstruction of this area would mean that everyone on the island who has frontage on a road at grade that's not heavily vegetated would be required to either plant a row of trees or put up a fence or install boulders. And I think that's an absurdity, and I don't think that anyone wants to go that route.
Does anyone want to make a motion if they don't have any more comments?
Actually, may I?
Oh, yeah, sure.
just address that?
Okay, I was going to address that, but I didn't think we needed to, but whatever.
No, everybody with an open lawn on a road is not subject to this sort. Only the people who start driving off the road across their yard and parking there and using it that way. Had there never been any indication that there were vehicles using this way in the first place, we're probably not here. There was because there is. There's not much of a slippery slope on this. If you have a history of doing this, you've got an issue. If you don't, you're fine until you do. I guess that's the way to go.
I'd like to make a motion to.
One further,
Oh.
if I may.
Yeah.
I think that this issue came to a head a year ago. I know it came to a head because my client is planning to do some work on his property and had a notice of intent filed with the Conservation Commission. And on that plan, the engineer showed this as, without really my client having noticed it, as a grass drive, didn't say driveway, it said grass drive to be maintained. And obviously that caught some people's attention. And I believe that may have resulted in a call to Marcus, and it came up as an issue before the Conservation Commission, and at that point we indicated to the Commission that no, that didn't mean that we were going to be operating the thing as a driveway, that we were going to be improving it as a driveway, and that it shouldn't have been shown that way on the plan. Because of reasons unrelated to this, that application has been withdrawn. My client is still working on plans for improvements that he plans to make to the property, but that, I think, note on the plan may be what stirred this whole issue up. And again, hopefully, my client's continuing non-use of this as a driveway, unless and until he got all the permits, which I think is highly unlikely and something that he has no intention of doing, makes it really a moot point.
Just one more on that. It's my understanding that the argument over the second driveway leading out onto Blue Heron pre-existed that plan to conservation that Mr. Reed just referenced. And I think the major issue with that plan is that it didn't just say driveway to be maintained. I believe it said pre-existing driveway to be maintained. It's also my understanding that when they were working through those building plans, that the idea that the owner of the property would abandon use of that second driveway leading on to Blue Heron Way was actually used as sort of leverage to get my clients to approve of those building plans that we're trying to go through. So I just wanted to clarify that. I believe this dispute pre-existed those plans.
So it looks, from where I sit, it looks like the stipulation could use a little tweaking and Marcus would sign off on it. If you guys could agree to, the 2 points, or to mitigate with the 2 points that he's reluctant on. Jim, I think you were gonna make a motion. Can I just, before you do that, just remind that because this is an appeal of the zoning enforcement officer, we do it in the reverse, right? Where we would say, and Leslie, please, or correct me if I'm wrong, but if you make a motion to approve the relief as requested or the applicant's appeal, if a no vote upholds Marcus's decision, a yes vote overturns Marcus's decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, conceptually, but, so do I. Make the motion
So
in the affirmative?
the motion is in the affirmative. Oh, sorry, Marcus.
What happens if you vote no on a positive motion is you defeat the motion.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're upheld. I think you'd offer a motion to uphold the zoning officer's decision.
Okay.
And vote in support of that, or to grant the appeal and
Okay.
vote to uphold.
Sorry, I thought we did it in the opposite.
It's that weird, you have to make a positive motion. And Ms. Williams.
Okay,
All
so
right,
we,
I'll
so
try
sorry,
this.
so that was what I thought I was doing. Okay, so anyways, so ignore me. Sorry, go for it,
I
Jim,
will
I'm
make
sorry.
the motion to uphold the zoning officer's determination
Second.
on this issue.
Okay, so the motion has been made to uphold the zoning enforcement officer's determination. Elisa has seconded the motion. All those in favor to uphold Marcus's decision, please say aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, and, okay, so that is 4-1 that passes. Thank you. Okay. So was that the last one that we have for today?
Yes.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then we can, have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so Jim made the motion, Elisa seconded. All those in favor to adjourn this meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank